victory, defeat, memes, and dreams all will be witnessed here today for the World Championship Series Challenger North American Playoffs. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined here on the desk today by the lovely Zombie Grub, and we are going to watch some North American StarCraft. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. You know, got a solid 8 hours of sleep. Did some gym time.
Is that not normally? Do you not normally get 8 hours of sleep for the Challenger broadcasts?
Well, I would say yes, but it's a known fact that I get in like at 10 p.m. on Friday and have to wake up at 3 a.m. But sure, let's go with 8 hours sleep every day. I'm a very mature, responsible adult.
Indeed. But guys, we have a lot of really great StarCraft today, and we're full of energy because it's going to be a fun one. North American StarCraft tends to have its own little brand of fun and weirdness, so I'm looking forward to this. But if you guys aren't familiar with the format for WCS Challenger, if you missed out on yesterday's broadcast, you may not know that 16 players actually started in this Challenger season, as they do for every season. 8 players now remain after we go through the group stages, and these 8 players are going to be playing in a single elimination bracket. The winner is going to be crowned the regional champion, and those top 4 players, the players that win each one of their respective quarterfinal matches, will actually get a seed to WCS Summers Group Stage 3. On top of that, they are also going to be competing for a $10,000 prize pool with $1,600 for first place, and all the players that got knocked out in the group stages still walked away with $400 for their troubles, and all the WCS points for everything in between that are going to be so important for WCS Summer itself.
Yes, it is. Very exciting to see who of today gets to join, I guess, the 4 from yesterday that we did give tickets to.
Yeah, those 4
but
Zerg players from yesterday. Now, the funny thing is that I don't believe, as we take a look at that schedule, that that is possible here for North America, because we don't have 8 Zerg players in the quarterfinals, or a potential for 4 Zerg players in the semifinals.
Okay.
You're giving me a really weird look. Anyways, Protoss versus Terran is our first match, with Neeb versus Drunkenboi. Following that up, we're going to be mixing it up a bit with Zerg versus Terran and TLO versus Future. After that, we're going to head over to Korea, believe it or not, for Estrella versus Masa, since both those guys are actually in Korea and just recently played in the GSL qualifiers there. And after that, we're going to have a little Korea versus North America with Scarlet versus Vindicta. Both, of course, North Americans, but Scarlet currently in Korea, as is per usual.
Yeah, we have that mix of regions. Of course, TLO is German. Don't tell anyone.
He's Canadian,
but
he's Canadian, guys.
He's recently adopted. He actually is in Canada, but we have 3 North Americans in Korea. We had a lot of people actually try out for the GSL qualifiers. Only a few minutes.
Even Wardy was trying out for the GSL
That's right,
qualifiers.
yeah.
Like, we had a bunch of really, really awesome names hanging out there. So if you ever get a chance to be around for GSL qualifiers, like, go sign up. It's a fun experience.
Is there a minimum league requirement?
You know, I used to think that there may have been a Masters League requirement, and no one that I can think of breaks that rule.
Right. As long as it's not like per region, because I doubt it. Like, you know, Wardy had time to get Masters in Korea, like on his vacation.
But regardless, definitely worth checking out. And in the meanwhile, you should definitely look out for this match, because while I think a lot of people, Neeb versus Drunkenboi, I don't even think I need to say that Neeb is heavily favored going into this, but Drunkenboi is a name that some of the more recent StarCraft fans, like, I know that there have been a lot more people that came into the scene in the past, maybe like 6 months to a year. They might actually not know who Drunkenboi is.
Yeah, extremely possible. Even considering, like, if it was free to play that brought you in, that was, you know, 2 years ago, that's still, I mean, Drunkenboi basically keeps a solid level, right, as a player. He ladders a decent amount, but then he just, like, kind of decides to, like, qualify and then does it. You're like, all right,
My
cool.
favorite thing about Drunkenboi is, like, and there are very few players like this, and I'm not going to paint him as, like, Drunkenboi is like a Cyril, guys, with natural talent. No, not like that. But Drunkenboi is one of those players who I think is very naturally talented, and he does play a lot when he's feeling like playing. But the thing is that it's like this thing that makes me sad, but also I have so much respect for him for, is that he just plays StarCraft when he really wants to. And then when he says, I'm not really enjoying StarCraft right now, he just stops for 4 or 5 months at a time. He comes back 5 months later and is like, I'm going to play some StarCraft because I'm feeling like it. And then within like 3 days, he's qualifying for WCS again. I'm like, this guy is nuts. I cannot believe how many fun memes he has in store for us.
Imagine not only being good at the game, but actually enjoying the game.
It's such a treat.
It's someone
we can always learn a little bit more from. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping into game number 1 of this best of 5 in the quarterfinals. Neeb versus Drunkenboi. Should be a good one, at least in my mind, but we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. On top of the red Protoss player from Ting, he is Neeb. Currently a favorite for WCS NA Challenger.
Absolutely. In the top left, as the blue Terran, he is Drunkenboi. Reppin' Canada. Currently not on a team.
Good old Henry Liu.
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy. I got to hang out with him at WCS Toronto.
Oh,
way
wow, that was a
back
long
in
time
like
ago.
2015 or so.
Yeah.
They used to have like a Red Bull event there as well.
Yes, they had an Archon mode.
Yeah.
Which is like the only thing I think I appear for on the Ligulac.
And the Esports Casters Invitation.
Oh, that's true. That's
Don't
true.
forget that.
I was really bummed though that I played in a Brood War tournament, you know, a DC one, and I actually got top 2, and it didn't appear.
Oh, that's some feels bad. I guess yeah, it's the Brood War stuff doesn't show up there.
Well, it was also on esports earnings or whatever.
Ah,
you know,
gotcha.
the Todd keeps bringing.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So I really quickly would just want to say, like, we should not be expecting a lot of macro games out of Drunkenboi. Not just because he is like a player that can't do macro. I actually think he can do some okay macro, but that is not the kind of thing he's going to throw out versus someone like Neeb. Neeb is a top class player, and as much as I've kind of talked up like the natural skill and talent of Drunkenboi, he is a memester. He is the guy who, way before anyone else I ever saw doing like the Hellion openings and stuff, I'm talking like 2013 or so, he was the guy who would be throwing out like super fast Hellion openings versus Protoss players and doing all sorts of really weird out of meta stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be pulling out in this series, but I know you've actually watched a bit of Drunkenboi's qualification matches.
Yeah, that's true. I don't believe I cast many of his TV. I cast one TVP. That's actually what happened, and I don't recall who he was up against, but he had very, very clean play is what I remember from it. So you're talking about his memes and his funny builds, and I think we kind of avoided it, but like one of the easy comparisons to make here is Drunkenboi and Masa.
Yes.
Very, very similar in both their playstyles and also how they make their way back into the scene, just seemingly like, qualify for things. But what I saw in his play in a TVP and a TVT actually against the Torques, right, which happened to be a rematch in the actual Challenger, was that he just had really solid play. Like, I mean, I don't mean to be rude when I say this, but like it wasn't like super amazing, like, oh my God, this guy's going to be the next big Terran player in North America, but it is still impressive. It was very clean. And he should throw out something weird because he is definitely the underdog here. But he also could try and just play a solid game. Neeb's shown, I don't want to say weakness, but he's shown that he could make mistakes in this matchup and actually get some, give some advantage to his opponent.
All right, so we have a Hallucinate Oracle moving into Scout here. Doesn't look like Drunkenboi is actually pulling anything to deal with it, so he doesn't really feel too threatened by it. It seems like he has a good idea. He's going to try and move some Marines to snipe it off and make sure that doesn't get any additional scouting information, but it'll expire anyways. And Neeb behind this is going for the pretty standard Blink opening. He went off of a Gate Nexus core. Same thing for Drunkenboi, going for that 1-Rex expansion, but he does add on those 2 extra barracks and gets up a fast stim and +1 weapons before really worrying about adding on a starport. Yeah,
this is a bit of an interesting build. He did do the typical, like, 2-1-1, quote unquote, right? Because he went factory and then 2 extra barracks, but like even further delaying that starport, very fast +1, and still nothing coming out like on the factory, like a reactor. So, I mean, I expect to see it soon, but I am like thinking about these faster pushes, that some Terrans kind of just go like, it's seemingly random, but they actually time out like combat shields or something along with those lines. With SCVs, but that's usually like a tank push or Cyclones and Landed Vikings or something, but this could just be pure bio, and a lot of it, the Stalkers are going to come over here and not just do some harassment, though. They are going to get some scouting done, but it's very limited on this map. It's not like extremely blinkable.
Okay, well, Widowmine does manage to get one of the Stalkers and softens up another one, but he does lose its life in the process. He might be able to get another Stalker here. No, Neeb paying attention. Nice blink back, dodges out of the way of that, adds on his double forges, and is going to probably force a couple of SCVs. There it is, off to repair the bunker to make sure that not too much damage gets taken here. But this is already some really, really nice pressure that Neeb's putting on.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that starport, but
I think it's just a pure Marine Marauder push, and he might make the starport or something after, maybe?
Well, there's got to be an all-in if you're not going to go for starport at this point. Like, and if so, I guess pull the SCVs as well, 2 base. It's going to be difficult for Neeb to, I guess, realize he doesn't see the extra 2 barracks, but he does have Hallucinated Scout in the main, which sees the 3 barracks, and then no factory, no starport.
Oh, yeah.
The factory is lifted, that's why he doesn't see it.
And he hasn't seen the extra barracks there. So the Hallucinated Phoenix has not scouted those extra barracks in the natural.
But what would you go... You don't figure that they proxied a factory and a starport and are doing absolutely nothing with it right now, right? Because that would be the one reason why you wouldn't see those buildings in the main. So it doesn't make any sense to have those proxied. Neeb shouldn't be worried about that, but he should be, I guess, through like he's processing probably that it is probably some type of 2-base, bio-based all-in, even though he didn't see the extra 2 barracks. He's seen enough of the main, I would say, to still be able to determine that. Yeah, what's
kind of funny here about the timing for how these upgrades and everything are going to line up is Neeb, of course, is adding on all of his gateways now. There's the SCV pool, because we already knew this was going to be a big all-in. But if Drunkenboi hits before he finishes up his +1 armor upgrade, then, or I should say after, then he will already be up against a 1-1 army from Neeb. So I think just going immediately is probably the better call, right?
So Neeb is actually not, he's now going to see the SCVs, but Drunkenboi made sure there was no observer to see that and like kept it behind. And he did continue producing probes.
Well, there's the shield.
But I just,
this is a big army, though, for Neeb.
Even if it's a last-second defense, I feel like it's going to be okay for Neeb. I mean, he works in sentries to just buy time, and what are you going to do without medevacs, man? Yeah. 1 stim is also going to be dangerous if he has to chase anything down. Then he might have to re-stim again, and that's going to be really brutal.
Yeah, going after the rocks is probably going to be a better call here, but unfortunately he lost most of his SCV buffer already. There's the stim forward, but Neeb already cutting off half of the army, more than half the army, and Immortal will try and get Focus Fire down, but the Bioforce will not even be able to take that out, and Neeb is taking an astounding lead in this game and seems to be immediately deflecting this push.
Yeah,
GG.
Slightly before that +1 finish, but I don't think that would have made any difference. Very odd play there from Mortarin. Neeb really didn't do much of anything to respond to that. He was producing probes until the very last second. He was up to 61. I think he took most of his gases, but actually I didn't check that. But the point is, like, how does that do any better than if you actually go for medevacs as well? Because I was actually checking his income, his bank too. And it's not like it was the cleanest, most perfect build order where he was constantly down to 0 minerals, 0 gas. Like, he was banking enough that I figure like you could include 2 medevacs in that production round. So I don't know.
I wonder if maybe some of his build just got thrown off by some of the stalker pressure because they was forcing a lot of the SCVs off the mineral line, which maybe meant that he like had more gas than he was expecting and didn't have the minerals to spend on it. So normally maybe he like was able to, I guess, continuously produce, but then because of the stalker pressure, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe. But I think also, just to be realistic, he was kind of hoping he wouldn't get force fielded like that. To be very real, I think that was like probably a big thing that was just he was hoping wouldn't happen.
Yeah. I would throw out the idea that maybe he was hoping Neeb wouldn't do blink charge as well, but I do believe Neeb's done that on that map every time. Not to, you know, throw out, you know, something that's totally wrong, but I can't. I'm trying to think of a situation where that would have worked, and I just can't. Because even with the SCVs, I think it would have been a close battle, but still one that, as long as there's any finesse from Neeb, which we expect, would have gone in his favor. So maybe another type of all-in thrown out next.
I think the other thing about the other thing that you have to remember about Drunkenboi is I was talking about like his weird builds and everything. A lot of the time he will do these things because he's kind of like says, sort of like you were saying, maybe they are going to go for something else, and this will work really well in this situation, where if they go for like the right build, I will actually be able to catch them really off guard. But if it doesn't, then you kind of look like a little bit of a fool, and that's actually very typical for a lot of Drunkenboi games. So it's the unfortunate reality of when you try those kind of build orders. But here we go, game number 2 on Turbo Cruise.
Yeah, love some Turbo Cruise. Just an interesting map pathway if you do try to avoid the middle, but we've seen a lot of people actually use it. As long as you're not in the midst of battle, you know, you don't know your opponent's not close to you, then it's only something you can actually use. Okay, well, we'll see what Drunkenboi wants to do this game. I'm
still pretty positive we're not going to be seeing any macro games out of Drunkenboi versus Neeb. But like, I don't think Drunkenboi wants to go to the super late game versus Neeb. He is definitely one of those earlier mid-game players, and relying, of course, on like some of the weird build orders is part of his play, but I think he also does usually have some pretty good micro in the early game. Maybe he's getting some of those. You know, actually, for anyone else, I would say, oh, maybe Drunkenboi's feeling some of the nerves and stuff. Drunkenboi's the guy that I don't think he's ever experienced nerves in his entire StarCraft career. Like, I think he just kind of plays and tries some stuff, and I was like, okay. Didn't work or it did work.
One of the sort of upsides, well, 1 for 1.
Yeah.
One of the sort of upsides of being the underdog is that, you know, the pressure's not there. Unless it's one of those situations where you're like the up-and-comer, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe Estrella would be like, you know, I usually don't beat Neeb, but I'm actually not sure, but his PvP is a little weird. But anyways, let's say that's the case, but everyone expects me to be the next big, you know, American player, then maybe that's the pressure. But I don't think Drunkenboi has those expectations of himself or anyone else.
No, he doesn't.
So yeah, I'm totally with you there. He's not experiencing nerves. So the other option we didn't really throw out for the last game was that he forgot his starport.
Yes, maybe.
I'm going to assume that he did not.
Yeah.
That would be an extremely nervous thing to do, and even then it would just be an extremely late starport if it was supposed to happen.
All right, well, we do have our first Stalker getting Chrono Boosted out to help deal with the Reaper. The Reaper is making its way slowly across the map. We do have a proxy up in the top left-hand corner from Drunkenboi. So with that good old factory being proxied, there's a chance that we're going to be seeing some shenanigans coming out soon. I really want to know where he's going to throw down the starport as well. I guess after the last game, I would normally have to ask if there's a starport, but pretty sure we'll see one this game.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, if he throws on 2 barracks back at home and just proxies Widowmine. Oh my God. Okay, right. All right. Okay. All right. That's what do you use a proxy factory for then?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering, because I'm used to seeing, for example, like the proxy factory and proxy starport for like maybe a Widowmine drop or the Hellion drop sometimes.
Yeah.
But the extra barracks, if you don't have like a medevac, do make it kind of interesting.
And even then, you don't really proxy a factory unless it's a 1-base build. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. So the timing of these barracks do say that it's not a 3 racks, which, by the way, is just not a build we really see very much anymore. Like literally 3 racks and then you push off the factory. I think he can read into that there should have been a factory somewhere, but I'm actually not sure about that. Like, how often do you go in there and see those barracks timings and no factory somewhere?
Yeah, I think this is, again, like I know I keep harping on the fact that Drunkenboi is an unorthodox player, but this is one of the things that Neeb absolutely knows who Drunkenboi is. He came up in the same era that Drunkenboi was kind of active on the ladder and everything. So I think when he looks at Drunkenboi's builds, he says, okay, I'm going to try to read what you're doing, but I'm just going to partially assume that I don't actually know 100% what you're doing. Like, I'm just going to prepare for a little bit of everything and hope that my mechanics and me being ahead or a better player is going to carry me through.
I'm so happy the Stalker's coming out here, because he
really
did
smart,
read into the timing. He did read into the lack of tech, and he is going to find that factory. I was going to mention, though, that even if he didn't find the factory, you know, with Blink Stalkers, you do usually send them out, but I guess if you thought there was a proxy starport, you'd be afraid to, because maybe a Banshee rolls in, right?
Yeah.
But if he had sent the Stalkers out to at least stall the Marine part of this push, I mean, like, is proxying the tank really that helpful? But it's found anyways, and all that analysis doesn't have to be done. It just is, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Cute little play or attempt at a mind game there from Drunkenboi, because he tried to lift up the factory while the Stalkers are still in vision range of the factory on the tech lab to make it look like the factory was not going to build anything more. Then he lands it back on the tech lab as soon as the Stalker's out of vision. But Neeb sees it again, and he's now going to be moving across the map, feeling confident. He doesn't have to worry about the original plan for Drunkenboi too much. He blanks forward, signs off the siege tank. He's going to lose 2 Stalkers in the process. Was that worthwhile?
Yeah, well, it's especially worth because he knows the factory isn't producing.
Oh, yeah.
It's either not producing at all because it's flying back home, or it's producing tanks that are back home that aren't conjoined with something else, which aren't good tanks.
Okay, so this is, can we get a shot at the natural of Neeb right now? Because this is going to be Drunkenboi doing the patented, I'm going to just try and run Widow Mines right in front of your bases / into your mineral lines. and just, yeah, I don't need a medevac. I'll just try and run them around and see what I can get.
Well, an observer pops out, so.
Oh, wow.
He does,
Phoenix even.
He does soak up a Hussein Phoenix that I'm not sure was the point.
Yeah.
The scouting is still being done just by the stalkers being here. So Drunkenboi did add on a starport, I think, like kind of as his factory was being found. So maybe the plan was to boost over 16 units, right, and then combine with the tanks, which I still wonder if really would be worth the timing, but we'll never know. And now he has completely shifted gears here to a third CC macro game. He will finally have medevacs to start harassment, but as far as an actual like decent push, I'm not sure it's going to be that impressive. Neeb, not close to his upgrades yet, but you know.
Oh no, the factory. Neeb is discovered, and he's like, wait a second, hold on. There was a Widow Mine out. You landed that factory and started making more of these again. Yeah. I was going to lose that Widow Mine before it can burrow, and the factory will get pushed back. So no more Widow Mines coming out, but there are, I think, 1 or 2 still left around on the map. So
this should be really bad news for Drunkenboi. I mean, the factory sometimes is not used very heavily, but I would say not of any games I've seen recently. Like, I mean, even Marine King Prime back in the day versus Zerg would lift a factory and not use it, but that was, you know, a long, long time ago. But you really do want to have Widow Mines. And usually at least have 2 tanks or something like that if the opener looks like this, and he just doesn't have any of that. So the overwhelming amount of zealots that pop out with what Neeb is doing here, he did not take his entire 6 gases, he only took their 3, and he has had that time to finish 1-1 in charge before Drunkenboi had combat shields in the drop. That should just be an overwhelming number. Like, he gets 1 decent wraparound, and Drunkenboi's army is dead.
Neeb is in an exceptionally good spot right now, and it's up to Drunkenboi to try and make some magic happen. The factory does end up burning down. Ghost Academy being added on. So yeah, it does feel like Drunkenboi feels he has to make something happen in the later stage of the game, that his earlier game plan is not going to work out. I think he's right about that, but it doesn't make the later game plan any easier to pull off.
Yeah. I'm like a little surprised by this entire game plan, because I know you were talking about how he can do these weird builds, but what we saw from Neeb's previous challenger group versus he played 2 Terrans, right? They actually, again, like he won the series 2-0 both times, but they still showed that like there's some decent micro to be done and macro to be pushed on to Neeb to actually make him sweat a little. Yeah. And I thought that Drunkenboi being kind of that next step above those 2 players, Vindicta and Crucial Nug, would have been able to show us something, but nope, just the weird stuff, and now he's in a bad position, so he's showing us good macro now. It's probably too late.
Yeah. All right, well, here comes the push across the map, and the Observer was just above the natural, so I'm pretty sure he's going to see this army moving across the map well in advance, and if he didn't before, here's another Observer for him. Nice scan, actually. Does spot out that Observer, though. Snipes it off. And that's going to leave Neeb a little bit of the question mark of what angle is that army going to come in from. And actually, the answer looks like his Drunkenboi is just backing off.
Yeah. Drunkenboi's best bet might just be to wait until he's more like closer to maxed out. You know, he'll be behind in upgrades, but that's not, you know, unusual. But he will have that chance to have a decent fight with the Ghost versus the EMPs, and then hopefully Micro versus whatever Neeb's throwing out. But he won't have Widow Mines. He will have a couple Liberators, and most importantly, Neeb is protecting his High Templars in that War Prism.
So the EMPs are going to be very difficult to land. We're going to see Neeb making his way forward. He's feeling aggressive right now. He feels like he can take on this army, and I have to say, I'm kind of inclined to agree with Neeb right now. There's a nice, decent dodge out of some of that storm. The feedback's coming out on some of these medevacs. Does get a snipe off on one of them. EMPs try to go off on this on that army, but not really hitting a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah, Drunkenboi very appropriately retreating from that, being scared of that. Again, I think maybe waiting a little bit longer. He's adding on barracks. He is adding on upgrades. There's a future in mind, but not, you know, not playing really heavily into that super late game, like 4th base coming down or, you know, 2nd starport. Some Liberator harassments surprisingly doing damage, considering the army was right there. But there is Neeb's transition. So, you know, as far as dealing with mass charge lot, which is difficult, but mass charge lot storm, maybe you can when you have your ghosts, but then the Protoss adds in that 2nd splash, and that's where things usually get really complicated, especially for someone who does not have a lot of momentum here.
All right, we're going to see the Charge Loss making their way forward. Only half the army for Neeb is actually over here. You're going to notice that the High Templars are missing, but here they come. And they are going to get some pretty juicy storms. Even when they're not hitting the bio, they're actually taking out a lot of the medevac. So only 3 remain now. That's half of them taken out. War Prism does get taken out with the High Templars still inside of it. There are some more High Templars coming in behind all of this, but Drunkenboi's army already looks a lot worse for the wear. 16 workers did go down during all of this, though. At the same time, that one Zealot you just saw sniped off, that was actually a Zealot that sniped off the 4th base as it was building. So that was a nice snipe off there for Neeb. I don't actually know if he needs to push in right now, but he's going to, and I think he still will be able to make this work, maybe.
This is really bold. The supplies really weren't that different. I don't think he realized how much army was actually there for Drunkenboi on the left side.
Yeah, the High Templars come in very late to the fight. The storms are landing toward the later end of things, but Drunkenboi still has a decent amount of army supply left over. He starts taking out the Immortals. The Archons are still morphing in, and they're going to get killed before they finish. And now Drunkenboi, for the first time in this game, is going to be sitting up in supply.
Very over-aggressive right there, and missing, I mean, there's so many things to say not to do that push, but you know, one of them was the War Prism missing, not just for the High Templar micro, but just to reinforce. I'm so surprised he did that. He must have assumed that Drunkenboi simply didn't have the macro behind that. And maybe the early game really did throw him off, but there was a ton of army off that left side, giving him also a really nice concave.
All right, a couple Colossus are out, and these High Templars are just barely getting enough energy for Storm now, so this is a very scary prospect for Drunkenboi. He's actually going to do something I really like, which is load up and get out of there. The empty medevac is the one that gets sniped off, so Drunkenboi does catch a bit of a break there. The Stalkers may still be continuing to chase and blink forward, looking for more kills there.
I am really happy this turned into a macro game, by the way. I think I mean, you're seeing that Neeb does have some weaknesses.
He does.
Some overconfidence, perhaps, just generally being, you know, in NA Challenger, the America's Challenger.
I think, I'm totally with you on this, on the whole, like, oh, maybe Neeb was not 100% certain about, like, how good or bad of a position Drunkenboi was in, partially because he is one of those guys that just takes breaks. He is an inconsistent player a lot of the time, so maybe he did sort of underestimate him. I think it is sort of one of those funny things.
Yeah, and just the opener, right? How weird that was, and the fact that there was no factory production means that he could be overly aggressive, not having to worry about Widow Mines.
He's a wild card.
Yeah, but it actually did not end up hurting him so much that a bad fight would, you know, topsy-turvy everything. Putting their momentum back in Drunkenboi's favor, and that's what just happened. He has a 4th base up and running, 5th base on the way. His upgrades were actually quite good. So he's even getting the armor already on his buildings.
Oh, yeah. Doing very diligent about that. I'm sure Nathanius is somewhere back in the green room smiling really happily right now. We do end up seeing more Colossus being made from that robotics facility. Is up to 5 and on a 6th being produced right now, as well as, of course, all those High Templars. And eventually, it looks like Neeb is going to be adding on all of his additional charge lots and everything. He's got plenty of Stalkers to work with right now. He's getting started on shield upgrades, but it's turning into a bit more of a passive situation, at least for the meanwhile, because Neeb wants to defend these bases. The funny thing, though, is that when you start getting into the later game stages, your bases on this map do kind of get pretty spread out. You do leave yourself open in a lot of different ways.
It gets weird, especially when you're responding to 2 or 3 different things. Then suddenly those inhibitor zones in the middle catch you by surprise very awkwardly. So it's going to be one of the longest games I've seen on Turbo Cruise, actually, if it really is going to be passive for a little while longer. But Neeb, having remaxed, having added on those Colossus, and now has a War Prism with High Templar, is ready to posture, at the very least, find an opening.
Yeah. Okay, Liberator does get sniped off there. I want to know that the Liberator count for Drunkenboi is extremely low. He's only got 1 Liberator out with 2 more on the way. It's really just about how high his Marauder count is more than anything else. Even his Medevac count isn't actually that high.
Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, realize there's an army coming this way. Both of you.
Neeb is going to be taking a lot of losses on those Stalkers. There's some decent Storm hitting a ton of the Vikings, but eventually we see the Blink Stalkers moving forward, sniping off that 1 remaining. Oh my god, Liberator, but the Ghosts, so many of them go down. They get some good EMPs off. I think there's still a couple of Storms left over in that army.
Yeah. And really, when you do that, when you send all your Ghosts forward, you're kind of hoping to kill literally every single EMP or Storm. So the fact is that there's even 1 left over is bad, but there's actually a ton more. This is a good concave for Drunkenboi. He's got a decent Viking count, but the Colossus are still getting their shots off alongside all of these storms. The splash pretty insane here.
Oh.
Marines coming from the top side, though. I guess they were part of a drop.
Yeah, where were they coming from? It looks like there's some reinforcements from Neeb also making their way forward, and barely, just barely, it looks like Drunkenboi is going to be able to push this back. The Vikings get sniped off by those few remaining Stalkers, keeping the War Prism alive with a single Colossus inside of it, also microing those Archons forward. But Neeb is on the retreat right now, and Drunkenboi is even taking the top left-hand base. He's actually expanding pretty quickly and really keeping up on that base count.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really nice thing to see. It also is a little bit hidden. Neeb has not had to really worry about these extra bases. He hasn't done a ton of harassment. I think he has been mostly saying, well, I should win these fights, right?
Yeah.
Now it's happened twice, and he's actually straight up lost the fights. Some amazing concaves every single time certainly have contributed, but I also really like Drunkenboi's, besides losing the ghost, that was obviously bad. But his Viking count was actually rather nice. I think Neeb underestimated it, and yeah, the concave actually was just beautiful. So now we're in a weird spot for Neeb, as he lost very expensive units without that much of a bank behind it. He now has to worry about Drunkenboi's Liberator count, which I love that Drunkenboi just immediately goes like kind of all in on that. Because if Neeb's trying to replace a ground army and try and get to Tempest, which by the way, he never really started his attempt to go there, that means a Liberator should be able to bully him at this point. So he's got to get on top of them immediately to start cutting that number down, or he's in danger of losing a base here.
Yep, all right. Drunkenboi is scanning ahead. He sees a couple of those High Templars. He's going to go for the EMP. He does land the EMP on both of those High Templars. Snipes off the two of them. Neeb has a little bit extra time to react. He blinks Stalkers forward, but that means he's not going to be able to blink into the Vikings or into to actually snipe off those Liberators. And now this base is already under fire. Drunkenboi in a really good spot, and even catching some of the High Templars on the right-hand side of this fight.
I think Neeb has to give up this base. He can't deal with the Liberators, but he's also struggling against the bio. He's running out of storms here. I think that's the last one for a while. Yeah, now he retreats, but after losing
the
expensive units, Vikings even landing and just demolishing that probe line.
Oh, but the Vikings are going to get sniped off by these Stalkers now, so the Colossus that are continuing to come out will be a bit more of a threat. But oh no, if Neeb loses this base, that is almost his entire economy that's remaining. He has one more base going up, but looks like Drunkenboi's going to retreat the last second. He barely might be able to save, what, 10 army or 20 army supply here, but that was a big loss for Drunkenboi.
Yeah, a little bit of an overextension, but that is not his entire army. He has been macroing behind here, and the army supplies are still similar. The upgrades still looking pretty good. In fact, +2 ship weapons just finished, so really quite even, but the Liberators aren't quite out yet. The Stalkers are picking off Medivacs too, so forcing him to choose between those two air units.
Okay, here come those Liberators, like you were saying. They weren't out yet, but now we have 11 Liberators with that next round of production finishing up, and the rest of the Liberators rallying forward. Drunkenboi scanning forward. He sees that the army is moving up into the top left, so he's trying to get in position. He's setting up his Liberators, trying to catch some of the Archons. And remember, with that weapon upgrade, he is able, I think, to two-shot the Stalkers, right?
Yeah. You know what? We actually are getting into a situation where we might have +3 shields, and I keep forgetting if that affects it. But yeah, usually you start two-shotting. As soon as you get the +2, that's why it's the most important upgrade alongside that Liberator range, which Drunkenboi has had for quite some time. But he has been forced back on the defensive, giving Neeb some room to maneuver. This is a planetary with that building armor and high-sec auto-tracking, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to take down, but Drunkenboi is actually... He was very late to responding to that army movement. No sensor towers might have been the biggest mistake here.
What's really funny, too, is that Neeb is going to go in a retreat path, and, okay, he is going to go just straight to the right. That is the safer way to go. I was going to say he might accidentally have discovered the top left-hand base if he continued going just further up north and maybe been able to snipe that off, but Drunkenboi is going to be safe on that front for a little bit. He had another orbital to replace that base, that planetary fortress that just went down.
Yeah, it is an orbital, though, but, you know, this actually has not been a game with a lot of charge-out run-bys or even DTs. I don't think we've had a Dark Shrine.
No, we have not. Liberator gets sniped off there, and looks like Neeb will get out of there safely in exchange for that. He's been able to reestablish those bases that he lost earlier, but even those bases are starting to get a little bit lower on resources. Storm's coming out, landing on a decent number of the Vikings. Liberator zones also nailing a couple of those Archons. Neeb trying to go through this inhibitor zone. This is not going to work out well for him.
Yeah, it does inherently put you at a disadvantage.
This is, I am really enjoying this. I really actually enjoy the late game situations on Turbo Cruise, and you don't see very many of them.
Well, I think it might be frustrating for Drunkenboi, but it is mostly because of the lack of sensor towers, I would say.
Yeah.
Also a bit of the map being wonky.
Snipes off an observer there with the missile turret before it goes down.
Oh, whoa. I think there was a drop that just killed a Nexus. Or a run by? I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, little run by with
Okay.
a couple of Marauders and some Marines. Okay, well, that is some equalizing damage. Neeb is once again going off to the right. When is he going to think about checking that top left-hand base? The Liberators are getting sniped off, and I guess the Drunkenboi, he's moving in with that same force to the right-hand side base that was already lower from the earlier time.
No, F2.
No, you F2'd.
Okay.
Okay, he's going back in.
It's dead. It's dead. There's not enough supply, actually, for Neeb to warp in. He did. Oh, that's why, actually. He did, but it was too late to the party. And that goes down. Neeb, though, does have that top left base, which is pretty healthy. And they both have accrued a bit of a bang.
Neeb is building another fleet beacon. This is his second fleet beacon. He forgot that he built the first one, and he's getting another Stargate. So I was wondering, where are the Tempests? When are the Tempests coming? And I thought maybe it was because of his economy getting hurt by the base snipes, but he just forgot.
I think initially it was, and he was at a very low gas count for a little while there, because I was wondering as well.
Oh, he canceled the second fleet beacon.
Yeah, I think he did just kind of forget for maybe a minute there. But now realizing that maybe the only way to actually crack Drunkenboi and finding the space is certainly a bummer for our Terran player, but at least it is, it's mined out quite a bit. Yeah, I think it's worth repairing against just nothing but stalkers. Oh, well.
Yeah, a lot of SCVs are also going to go down over here. Drunkenboi, he does know that the entire army is up at the top right-hand side. Can he do anything with it? No, it doesn't look like he decides to move out. He's lost 2 of his very important bases, and it's really just about that bottom center base that's mining now. So he's got to do something.
And even a third orbital, right? So he should be placing down at least 2 more bases right now, I think. But he also has to replace the worker count. But he has the minerals to do so. So I'm not sure if he kind of is in that moment where he's like, do I even have a chance anymore? But he certainly does with his army supply still being close to max. A fight could go drastically in his favor.
He also has a really decent mineral bank right now, so I think he still has, even if some of this army ends up trading out, he has the ability to still remax a little bit with a lot of Marines, but of course the gas count is a bit lower. Liberators sieging up on the left-hand side, but a decent chunk of them also getting sniped off there by the Stalkers. Neeb is getting zoned out from protecting this right-hand side base, and Drunkenboi may actually be forcing a really, really awkward decision for Neeb.
Oh, the Colossus, the Tempest on the left side, the Vikings in a perfect position. Tempest do not take a lot of shots. He's choosing to go after the Colossus first and foremost, though. He did take out 2 of those.
Storms blanket those Vikings and do soften them up. Remember that this is a really weird spot for Drunkenboi too. He can't really retreat back and repair anytime soon. Storms coming out on top of the Liberators. The Vikings going after the remaining Colossus. So many of the Liberators are in the red, but they barely manage to survive and push back this army. Another Nexus is going to go down. More Vikings are trying to rally forward to deal with these Tempests, but they are slowly whittling away at this army.
Yeah, those Liberators are so low. Literally one shot from a lot of these Tempests, and finally they get on top of it, allowing that ground army to actually break through. That ground army maybe isn't that impressive anymore. Is that the last storm he has?
Yeah, but
it might have been enough.
I mean, at the same time, there's no more medevacs anymore. This army has also been stimmed up so much. Drunkenboi has to retreat. It is still relatively even supply, and Drunkenboi has finally started another command center on the bottom right-hand side. Actually, it looks like a second command center, but the rest of his army has been taken out, and it's not a planetary fortress in the bottom right. He's going to have a hard time defending this, especially against the Tempest.
Yeah, and now he really can't afford to go for those extra command centers, so he even cancels the one that's building. This one, unfortunately, is going to go down with the Tempest already being here. Now, if he could accrue a decent size of Vikings, this is not a very big army, and the Tempests do go down fast when they're actually targeted, but that is a very expensive call. But he's got a decent count. By army's back up. He's only down 6 army supply. It's really about those workers. And Neeb's new base is the top left one that is already mostly mined out, right? Not even partially.
Yeah. I mean, half the mineral patches are actually gone already. The Marines and Marauders are on the way, but it is just those and some medevacs. He's only got 2 Liberators. A couple of these ghosts added back in. There's not that many High Templar he has to worry about, so just EMPs on the army could really, really make a big difference here.
Absolutely. Some of these positions as well, with those Vikings, as we saw in that aggressive maneuver, can be really abusive for the Terran. It is a very nice Liberator. It's going to force the entire army to respond, actually. Neeb is going to entirely the top left.
I mean, his entire economy is on that top left-hand base
true.
and the top center base, so I totally get behind that. The Liberator comes back in. There is a Stalker over here. I think unless he blinks forward, he might be able to stop a Stalker or 2. Focus fire down 1 last worker. Neeb down to 37, but 37 is actually already full saturation for him right now.
Yeah, right. Drunkenboi was absolutely looking for an opportunity to kill a building Nexus, but there was not one. He even finds like gas geysers that aren't even important anymore. So
his one Liberator sieges up.
Yeah, not a very big outmaneuvering there. He does respond, and Drunkenboi doesn't want to take a fight right now. He needs to get shots off on these air units.
Ooh, this is really
nice.
Draws the entire army over to the right-hand side. He is going to be taking the fight on the right-hand side a little bit and losing a lot of units, but he's sniping off that important mining base, and Drunkenboi's still mining from the bottom center. But again, he's losing a lot of units on the retreat. That's his last medevac that he had with this army. So these stims, there is no healing right now. He has to take a fight, and he's not going to have a lot of his hit points.
He needs to get those Vikings in a decent position. He's going to just be...
He has to repair this one.
He's going to be worn out, yeah, exactly, if he doesn't take a fight soon. But he needs to... There's so many things he needs to do, but the medevacs are about to pop out to at least help heal a little. The topside army, that should be something that he can defend.
Well, the High Templars don't have enough energy for Storm yet, and he does fire them down. Tries to go for the Archon. Shield Batter's going to heal him up for a little bit, and that'll buy Neeb some time. Maybe he'll get enough resources for another warp in, too.
A bit of a back attack here.
This could be really sick.
That's what he's planning.
There's only like 1 or 2 High Templars. He does snipe off that High Templar before he can get a Storm off, and now the Colossus is going to get focus firing down from both sides. The Tempest doing a lot of damage, but there's not enough of a ground force. The North Force for Drunkenboi does get taken out, and the Colossus reign supreme. They take out that main force of Drunkenboi. Drunkenboi down a bit of supply, and he still has some of that counterattack force on the north side, but it did not snipe off that Nexus.
The Archon, like these are important takeoffs for the planetary turret fire. The Archon
is close again. He's out of minerals.
He can't repair it. Oh no, he's down to just the army in the middle of the map right now, but he has taken a new base. He can't afford to make it a planetary. He's not mining gas anymore, I don't believe.
If he can snipe off maybe that other center base that Neeb just took, no, it's too late now. The army's going to retreat back there. If Drunkenboi can get some damage on, okay, actually, he has a lot of medevacs now all of a sudden, Zombie Grub. I'm actually still a believer right now in Drunkenboi. I'm not a big believer, but these medevacs can maybe exploit some of the immobility of Neeb's army.
That is certainly true, but eventually it's all going to come to a head, and he has to take the engagement.
Yeah.
And if he's going to take an engagement, I think he does need at least some Vikings or just a really amazing concave.
All right, takes out the pylon, gonna go straight for the Nexus. The army is coming in from the south side over here. Actually, from both sides, the Stalkers come forward, sniping off the medevacs. A good decision there from Neeb. He gets the Nexus, but loses a lot in the process, and Drunkenboi is now sending out 1/3 the supply of Neeb. And still getting chased down.
Yeah, his army's gonna die, and that might be the tap out. He needed to combine everything together. He's gonna try and take out the stocks, so the Zealots can help out. Boost is back on. He's gonna lose another medevac. Not even. Actually, it was a decent trade.
Yeah, he gets the Nexus for, I mean, and he's still mining. And remember, he has 4 orbitals with mules, so his mineral income is decent for at least Marines. He's not going to have a lot of Marauders, though, or any other tech.
Exactly. He can't even build Marauders, much less a bunch of Vikings, so that's the choice. He makes 2 Marauders. But I really think that he needs Vikings. I think he needs to grab some units before the fight actually happens, right? So the Vikings can do that over, like, dead air, or maybe you can try and snipe an Archon that was low, but it's not anymore. But that's just doesn't feel possible anymore. Neeb also trying to get an Oracle to make sure that he isn't caught by surprise.
Yeah, sniping off some of these Zealots is nice, but Neeb is finally starting to mine again, and in exchange, Drunkenboi is losing all of his medevacs once again. No sustainability to this army. Ladies and gentlemen, GG gets called. Neeb does take the second game.
Really, really cool game, though, and it started off so poorly. I mean, not like I lost 20 SCVs poorly, but it just felt like there was no momentum, that the game plan would be entirely changed.
Proxy Factory scouted immediately before it can do anything. The Widow Mine's getting sniped off. Yeah, that was not a great start for Drunkenboi.
And then not having any Widow Mines, right? Like no splash really from that factory, but then still playing a really great macro game with the tools he had, making right decisions. He was certainly helped by Neeb's overconfidence. That first battle probably shouldn't have happened the way that it did, and then the one defensively around his natural was the real momentum change. But it's just like all kudos to Drunkenboi for being able to even not just like physically in the game adapt to the situation, but also mentally adapt to the situation, go back into just, okay, it's a macro game.
Yeah, I think there are certain players out there, like Neeb is one of those players, I think the more pristine and normal a game is, the better he does. Drunkenboi is one of those players that thrives in chaos. He is looking to try and make the game weird because that's sort of his wheelhouse. So I think that last game started toward the end, getting into that weird situation after Neeb's overconfidence that you were talking about. I'm really excited to see where this next game is going to go, because after a game like that, Neeb, of course, he's a tried and true champion, guys. He is a guy who can bounce back from situations and not let one game affect him too much. But all that being said and done, sometimes you play like a weird and kind of crazy, hectic, frustrating game where you're like, I had that game won. I almost ended up throwing it. You go to the next game and you're almost playing just normal you, but it's just a little bit less, and Drunkenboi might be able to find some ways to exploit that.
I would love to see a perfectly normal game and what Drunkenboi could do with that without having to change his plans, without having to sacrifice an entire, production facility.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, to your point, like, it might just mean that Neeb feels empowered because it is totally normal. So that's a tough decision for Drunkenboi to make, but I'm still sticking with the idea that, like, Neeb did not look invulnerable against two Terran players that usually just aren't on anyone's radar. He actually looked at times, weak, exactly like he did in the previous game. And there were certainly times Drunkenboi could have won that previous game too.
All right, well, we're heading on to game number 3. New Repugnancy is going to be the map. Neeb, despite everything we've been saying about how close that last game was, he is now at match point and 1 game away. Congratulations to Neeb. No, it looks like it's supposed to be actually not
Cyber Forest.
Cyber Forest, not Cybernetics Core. So the map is supposed to be Cyber Forest, not New Repugnancy.
Yeah. All right. Probably mixing up the vetoes with the choices.
I really do enjoy watching Drunkenboi, though. Like, he is one of those breaths of fresh air every single time he comes back into the scene. Every single time he ends up playing, we get to see some little fun bits of weirdness, and he's a very, very nice, pleasant guy. He's always a really, really a pleasure to see.
We like, cheering for the good guys.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's why Jon Snow is one of my favorite players. I don't think Jon Snow is like on anyone's enemy list.
Literally, like, the villain that we've sort of made. It's like some people in the community is Cyril because they just want him to stop winning. That's like we had to make a villain of the guy that wins and is really nice.
Cyril's a villain. Is that what you're? I'm sorry, guys.
This is a meme that I forgot about.
A year ago, we got into like a 45-minute argument about me calling Cyril a villain. You were in control. Gave me so much flack for saying that I thought Cyril in some ways was becoming a villain.
Yeah,
so
you said that he was a villain, and you compared him to
a villain.
You said that he was like Idra, and I was like, I can see your point, but
not Idra, but
because he's not like Idra, exactly. Yeah. But it's like a very small subset of the community that is like, I want him to lose.
Yeah,
and that's what our argument was.
They want to see the big upset.
Yeah,
I mean, Cyril's like the super duper nice villain. Like you get behind him. He's like,
I think
Thanos
the argument
is maybe not the best example, but like you kind of see from his perspective, you empathize with him, and you're like, oh yeah, he's such a nice guy and everything. But I kind of still want to see him lose.
Yeah, I think the argument boiled down to like it's not just wanting to see someone lose that makes them a villain. I think is what we determined it to be, and then we like argued about what a villain is for like 20 minutes. Yeah.
Well, no take backsies. You call them a villain, so.
I said some people consider him a villain. Excuse you, sir.
All right, hopping into game number 2. Like we said, again, it's going to be Cyber Forest for this map, and we'll see if Drunkenboi decides to go for any kind of proxies or even just like weird early base two base aggression.
Yeah, it's map number 3.
Oh, sorry, map number 3, yeah. 2-0.
Just to remind everyone, because I guess that first game was not as cool, not as long as the second one.
It could have been cool, but Neeb was really good, so.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's like the reverse in the second game, is that it could have been really short, but Neeb actually messed up.
Yes. This is one way of looking at it. This is true.
Yeah, because again, like if he had not pushed in aggressively into that high ground natural, he would have had a decent army left over. Like, he did take an okay fight, not amazing, the previous one.
Yeah.
But if he had just retreated, waited for a War Prism, he also was waiting on a Colossus transition that I think would have been really too fast for Drunkenboi to be comfortable against. Instead, it kind of like, it kept teeter-tottering so that they were finding the opportunities to get the tech they needed. Because even towards the late game, that happened with the Tempests. Neeb actually was forced to delay Tempest for quite some time with all the constant trades, and it was almost a question, like, if he doesn't get there, does he lose because of it? And it was a a very good question to ask. It almost happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one thing. I know I keep talking about how much I love Drunkenboi because it's one I have to make up for like all the lost time that he doesn't play StarCraft. Like the 4 or 5 months that he takes off, and I'm like, okay, I've been saving up all of my love and admiration for this guy. But I think one of the fun things about his playstyle is that you will see other players play against him. I actually think Haas is very similar in the same way, where you'll look at other players play against him, and you'll say, okay, Haas, like mechanically, not actually that great of a player. Some of his strategies are obviously very crazy and everything, and you're like, okay, this should actually be an easy smackdown. But then you'll see his opponents make a lot of mistakes against him, and it is sort of that idea that their playstyle, or even sometimes their reputation, do sort of force more mistakes. It's not partially it's maybe some nerves. I think it's a lot of other just concerns about they could be doing anything right now. I have to just constantly be on the lookout for everything. Yeah.
Well, Neeb's going to change things up. So he went Twilight Council both last games here and into the Blink Charge. And I think he did the delays extra 3 gases in both games. But now going into a Robo.
Well, the Adept is going to get here in time to snipe off that SCV. There's no units down over here on the low ground. And, all right, there it goes. A couple of Marines are going to pop out in a second.
Actually, I thought Drunkenboi was going to try and send that SCV back, but he is maybe scouting? Yeah, well, he already has a starport, so
yeah.
I guess he's scouting with that SCV for any proxies.
Okay, so, I mean, the Adept is still delaying that natural, and like you said, the SCV got taken out. The Reaper did manage to survive and sit in the bottom left, like you said, looking for proxies, but here comes a Stalker now. This is not the normal amount of damage that you're able to get done with just the Scouting Adept and Stalker, and depots do get raised in time.
Yeah, it does happen, especially when they don't want to bring the Reaper back. If he had used that SCV to build, it might have been enough.
Oh, the Reaper gets surrounded. It gets a probe at least, but not ideal. And now look at this nice micro here from Neeb. Snipes off 2 of the Marines, gonna snipe off another one. The Widowmine's on cooldown, because it looks like it actually got sniped off on the Adept. And hey, nice load up, but this still means the Widowmine goes down.
Yeah, this was still a loss for Drunkenboi. It really wasn't supposed to go this far. Hopefully the Reaper comes back, helps snipe that Adept, and then the one Stalker is dealt with somehow. But just maybe figuring he didn't need to. Cyberforce does have that natural ramp, so maybe sometimes feel a little bit safer, but he is not just losing SCVs, army, as the Widowmine goes down here with the Observer. He's also lost time on that orbital. Time on SCV production. This is a real disaster.
Zombie Grub, I almost already feel like this is nearly game ending.
It's bad. It's very bad. And Drunkenboi, this was probably his plan from the get-go with that SCV, and he is going to continue with it. What is it, though? Is it I want to say it's a battle cruiser.
Yeah, Neeb is I guarantee you at this point, Neeb is just scratching his like, what? What are you doing? Like,
wants to get that Observer. He wants... he's not going to get it.
The SCV is even coming out of the command center to try and push these Stalkers back. He gets one Stalker, but here comes the Warp Prism now. He's going to warp a few more Stalkers. There's just not enough army here for Drunkenboi. He doesn't even have energy on the Raven anymore. That's it.
Yeah, this is actually...
like, he physically does not have enough units to take this on anymore.
Wow. Talk about a snowball.
Oh,
there's a tank.
Okay.
But you just micro up against it a little bit.
And Warpin should be off cooldowns now, so he's going to warp in a few more units. The Siege Tank unsieges. Some Zealots get warped in. Stalkers are starting to get taken out, but there's still 2 left over, and they're going after the Raven Siege Tank. Ooh, nice repair on the Siege Tank. He's keeping it alive versus those Zealots. It's some really nice fancy micro from Drunkenboi. But unfortunately, it's still a situation where he's not mining even close to how well mining Neeb is.
Yeah, this is game, unfortunately. Drunkenboi, I think, still wants to execute this Fusion Core thing, but he doesn't even have the minerals or gas to get anything that comes from the Fusion Core, so...
I think he just wants to do the meme now, like...
Yeah. At least say he got it. GG. Oh, okay. One amazing macro game, and then the world's worst opener. That was unfortunate.
Yeah, of course, that we have to clarify and say that that is one of those situations where Drunkenboi is making one of those gambles. He's taking a lot of risks in that build and cutting things, and for example, not pulling that Reaper back and everything.
Yeah.
You're really just hoping your opponent doesn't do something like that. So I want to say it's bad luck, but when you play that sort of style as Drunkenboi, it's not even just luck. Like, you kind of have to read your opponent and what they're going to do.
It's not bad luck. He should have brought that Reaper back, and again, that kills the Adept a little bit faster, helps with the grenade against the Stalker with the SCV pull, and then it doesn't snowball. You stop being silly and you build a bunker because like, okay, never mind. And then it's possible that Neeb doesn't even go for a Warp Prism because that opening is no longer there. But since he was clearly winning the natural, he was like, let's build a Warp Prism with the build I got.
Yeah. I can, in my head, I already see Neebs just kind of like finishing that game and just like turns to, I don't know, his mom or something or his brother in the room and just like, what was that?
Oh, I'm sure he's gotten a couple games like that against a lot of Terrans.
But, I mean, that is sort of what you get with Drunkenboi. Sometimes you get some really, really amazing, super scrappy, cool games, and sometimes it does sort of falter. But hopefully we'll get to see more of him. It's always good to have you back in the scene, Henry, and we'll look forward to seeing more of you, maybe in Montreal or something. But until then, we're going to be taking a look at the rest of the quarterfinal matches. You guys can see over here that our next match probably, I mean, it might have some memes here, but I think this is going to be closer to a normal match than the last one with TLO versus Future. Following that up, still got Estrella versus Masa, Scarlet versus Vindicta. So we see you guys in that Terran versus Zerg.